think you're supposed to use this to calibrate the white balance. It says to hold it here and then push the button. I can't even tell if it's in focus. Just hit the button for me. Hey, it's Mike. Let's talk about REAPER. People often ask me what I like most about REAPER, and if I'm honest, it's a difficult question to answer. On one hand, there's so many different things to like about REAPER that it's difficult to name off just a few. And on the other hand, once you get comfortable with REAPER, you fly through so many features that you take them for granted and forget about how awesome they actually are. Let's take a look at a few of my favorites. I've got the REAPER download page open, and as we take a look at the Windows 64-bit version, it weighs in at a whopping 15 megabytes. The Linux version is 11 megabytes, and the Mac version is either 21 or 25 megabytes depending on your architecture. If you compare that to other DAWs, most of them weigh in at several hundred megabytes to several gigabytes. Even on a slow internet connection, you can download REAPER in a matter of seconds to minutes and be up and running in no time. Not only is it lightweight in file size, but it's also light on system resources. I'll close this browser window and open up a recent project. Let's see how fast it loads. And in a matter of seconds, my project is completely loaded. It may take a bit longer to load depending on the plugins that you've got on a project. In this case, I'm only using REAPER stock plugins with the exception of a couple of amp sims from Audio Assault. If I load a different project that contains a lot of the plugins from Brainworks and Plugin Alliance, it may take a few seconds longer, but it's still much faster than most other DAWs. Now, this particular project is something that a friend and I recorded during a live stream the other day. Let's play a piece of this and check the performance meter and see how much resources REAPER's actually using.
Burn it to the ground. Watch the walls come falling down. Burn it to the ground. Kill them all. Burn out.
As you can see here in the performance meter, I've currently got 38 effects in this project and we're averaging about 3% CPU. I can't think of any other DAW that runs this light on resources. I've never used Pro Tools and I've not spent much time in any other DAW outside of REAPER. One thing that I've come to appreciate about REAPER, but also take for granted in some respects, is how flexible it is. There's more than one way to do just about everything in REAPER. To some that may seem a little bit intimidating because there's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do anything. But the beauty and power of this is you can choose whichever method best suits your workflow. Let's take a look at REAPER and I'll show you a few examples. I've got a blank project in front of me and this is the default theme for REAPER. Other than my customized toolbar up here, this is what REAPER looks like out of the box. If I wanted to add a new track, there's several ways I can do that. The most obvious way to do that from just looking at what you can see on the screen here is clicking on the track menu up top and insert new track. That has created a new track for me here in the track control panel and subsequently in the mix control panel. If I'd like to add another track, I can double click here in the empty space in the track control panel. I can also double click in the mix control panel. I can also press Ctrl T on the keyboard. Or if I'd like, I can assign another key press combination to add new tracks. I'll delete those. And if I wanted to add multiple tracks, I can right click in the track control panel and choose Insert Multiple Tracks. It asks me how many tracks. Let's say I'd like to record guitars, and I've got 6 guitars. I'll say 6, and we'll give it the name Guitar. Now it's created guitars 1 through 6, but it's also incremented the number in the name of the track. You'll also notice that my tracks have been colored red. This is another feature that I love about REAPER is the customization. While this feature is not something that comes built into REAPER, this has been facilitated by a user-made plugin called SWS Extension. Let's take a quick look. Here in my extensions menu, I can go to Auto Color, Icon, and Layout, and you can see that I've created rules based on certain criteria. I'll temporarily pin this window so it stays on top, and we'll delete these tracks and add back a few so you can see these rules in action. Here I have a rule that affects markers. What this rule says is if I create a marker that's called equals start, it will color it with a blue color. So if I wanted to place a marker here and give it the name equals start, you can see that changed from red to blue as the rule took place. The same is true for a marker with the name end. So I'll do the same here. We'll call that equals end. and that marker has changed blue just as my rule dictates. These rules are processed in a priority order. You can see that my third rule is a rule that affects tracks, and it says that if the track is a child of a parent folder, to give that track the same color as the parent. That may seem kind of complicated, but let's do an example. I have a rule for my drums to make any track that has the word drum in the name this gray color. So let's create 10 tracks. I'm not going to name them this time, and I'll scroll up to my top folder and call it drums. You can see that that folder has taken on the gray color, but that's also the default color, so let's change this for a moment to make this more interesting. I'll choose a different color. I can't think of a color that starts with D, so I'll just pick something at random. We'll choose this purplish color and hit OK. And now you can see that my drums track is that purple color. Now if I'd like to take tracks 2 through 10 and put them inside of the drums track and make drums a folder, I can drag these into the drums track, and they have taken on the same color as the parent. This auto color feature makes it really easy to navigate around your projects just by looking at the colors of the tracks. Reaper has a feature built in called SCREENSETS that allows you to create custom layouts to suit your workflow. Let's take a look. I'll open up that same project we had open earlier. And of course now, since we've changed our color for drum tracks to purple, that has affected this project as well. Let's go back and fix that. There, that's better. Now back to SCREENSETS. This is my default layout, and you can see that I've got the mixer docked at the bottom and my arrange view up above. I can resize this mixer. I can change the height of the faders, either one at a time or globally. And I can do the same for my effect slots and my sends. But where SCREENSETS is really powerful is if I've made some changes to this and don't like it, I can press a key and go right back to my default layout, or I can call a completely different layout. While you can't see it at the moment, I do have a 2-monitor setup. I just tend to capture only one screen when I'm doing these videos. If I'd like to reconfigure this for a 2-monitor setup, I can undock my mixer and drag it over to my other window, or I can recall a screen set that I've already made by pressing F8. I'll drag this mixer over here to where you can see it, and you can see that this screen set has a floating mixer that I can move anywhere that I'd like, independent of the arrange view. To return back to my default layout, I can press F7, and we're right back where we started. I've also got another view that I use on occasion. This screen set gives me one fader on the left side, and that fader changes depending on which track I've selected, and my master is over on the right. This can be useful for writing automation to give me a focused fader to work with, though I tend to draw in my automation manually. I'll go back to my default layout, and let's say for example I wanted to create another layout that's similar to this one but includes a track manager on the right side. I'll go to my view menu and open up the track manager. Now you can see that I've already got the track manager docked on the right side. By default it's floating, but since this is the last place I had it, it returns right back to that same position. If I wanted to save this as a screen set, I can then go to View, Screen Sets and Layouts, and let's create another entry here in slot 4. We'll save that, and we'll give it a name, Default with Track Manager. Now I can call that screen set with F10. So we can go back to our default with F7. I can press F8 for my 2-monitor setup, F9 for my split mixer view, and F10 for the default with the track manager. There's several other windows and utilities that you can dock in different places on the screen, and if it suits your workflow, you can save that to any of the screen set slots to quickly recall that layout. The routing matrix in Reaper gives you a fast and easy way to route inputs to certain tracks for recording, route tracks to hardware outputs, or route tracks to other tracks. Let's take a look. My audio interface has 16 inputs. Let's say for example I wanted to add 16 tracks. I'll minimize those so we can see a bit more. And in order to change the input for any of these tracks, I can right-click the Record Arm button and go to Mono and choose one of my 16 inputs. That's pretty fast in and of itself, but that can be a little bit time-consuming when I've got 16 tracks to assign. Let's go to View and Routing Matrix. So I'll click Routing Matrix, And that shows me my current tracks, and you'll notice that each of them is currently routed to my default input of 1. If I wanted to route these sequentially, tracks 1 through 16 going to inputs 1 through 16, I can left-click and drag diagonally to set these inputs. I've missed a couple, so we'll go back and fix those to make sure that we get these in the right order. And you'll also notice that I've got a little bit of a highlight that helps me keep track of where I am. I'm just being a little bit careless, and that's why I'm missing it. So now I've quickly got my tracks 1 through 16 assigned to inputs 1 through 16. That's a whole lot faster than right-clicking and manually assigning each of those inputs one at a time. Speaking of fast routing, another thing that I love about Reaper is track templates. You may notice that I have a drum set behind me, and that drum set stays mic'd up. If I want to record my drums, let me get rid of these tracks here. I can quickly set up to record my drums by right-clicking in the track control panel and choosing Insert Track from Template, and you'll notice I've got a template called Myk Drum Tracking. I click that, and I've got my template already pulled up with my routing already configured. I'll open up the routing matrix, and you'll see that I've got each of my tracks assigned to its own input. You'll notice that I've got several tracks that are all set to input 1, but those tracks are dummy tracks. What I mean by dummy track is track number 1, which just says drums, is a folder containing all of my other tracks. The folder in Reaper automatically acts as a bus as well, so if I turn down the drums fader, it turns down the summed volume of all the tracks contained inside. If I right-click this Record Arm button, you'll notice a checkmark here on Record Disable Input Monitoring Only. I have this set on a handful of folder tracks that are contained inside here. Something else that I really like about Reaper is track grouping. You can group tracks and assign whatever parameters that you'd like to those groups. For example, in my drum template here, I've got it set to where all I have to do is click the Record Arm button on the drums folder, or actually any of these folders that have the red flag on them, and it automatically arms the desired tracks. That's a lot quicker than me clicking on each of these Record Arm buttons one at a time. It seems that Reaper truly is built for speed and efficiency, and I keep finding more ways to enhance my workflow every time I open it. I don't have a huge studio, and I definitely don't have any staff members to assist me with anything. When I'm recording myself playing drums, it's literally me recording myself playing drums. Fortunately, Reaper includes some features to make that very easy to do myself. Let's take a look. We've got the same project open that we had a moment ago that's just got my blank drum template. Let's take a look at Options, Preferences, and let's scroll down in Preferences to Control OSC Web. You'll see here that I've configured a couple of web interfaces. Reaper has its own web server built in to facilitate certain functions. The first one I'd like to show you is the mixer. I can access that by going to the IP address of my computer, followed by port 8081, or I can go to rc.reaper.fm/mixer. I'll highlight that and click Edit, and you can see that I've configured that URL here. Reaper will intercept local traffic destined for this address. So I'll copy this address, bring over a fresh instance of Firefox, and we'll paste that address into the browser. You can see that Reaper has successfully intercepted the traffic, and now I can click this link to go to the mixer. Now this looks a little bit hideous here because it's designed for use on a mobile phone, so we'll see if we can make this a little bit smaller. And if I were on my cell phone and at the drum set, this is what I would see. I can arm and disarm my tracks, and you can see Reaper responding there. If I click on any of the individual tracks, it brings up a fader, and I can turn up or down the volume for that fader. You can see it responding there in Reaper. Now this is helpful for me because from my drum set I can simply use my cell phone, record arm my drums, and click record. I don't have to have any help to record myself on a multi-mic'd kit. Let's open up another project and I'll show you the other interface that I've configured. I'll go to Recent Projects, and let's open up that live stream test from earlier. Now this other interface that I have is for a personal monitor. In order to utilize this, I'll need to create a track for monitoring. I have an action to automatically create a monitor feed for me, and I've got it pinned to a button that I've made up here. Let's say that I wanted to record drums to this, and I wanted to be able to control in my mix the guitars, the vocals, and the bass. And let's say the vocal verb as well, just for kicks. Now I'll click my monitor mix button, and it brings up this Q bus generator. The bus name kept the same thing that I last put in there, which is drum monitor, and you can see that I'm sending that to hardware output number 7, which goes to a headphone amplifier at my drum set. I'll click Create Q bus, and now track number 27 shows drum monitor. We can see here in this routing table that it's receiving from guitars, vocals, bass, and the vocal reverb, and each of these receives are pre-fader. What this means is that any adjustments that I make in this does not affect the primary mix. Also, it's not going out to my main, it's only going to hardware output 7. So with that created, now let's open up Firefox again. And this time we'll go to rc.reaper.fm/drums. This requires me to select my monitor track, which we've already created. I'll choose drum monitor. And once again, if I were sitting at my drums on my cell phone playing along to this, I can turn up or down whatever I need to hear in order to play along, and it has no effect on the primary mix. You can create as many of these as you'd like, as long as you give them each a unique name and a different port number, and if you have multiple performers, as long as you've got enough hardware outputs for each performer, they can each control their own headphone mix from their cell phone. And last but certainly not least is the community. Reaper users are quick to tell you they use Reaper. I've never seen a software-focused community quite as passionate as Reaper users. We've got the Reaper forum, my own Discord server, the unofficial Reaper users group, and countless YouTube, Facebook, and Reddit groups full of users helping each other with the program that they love using. Best of all, the creators of Reaper are also active in the community. I love the fact that they listen to community feedback, quickly squash bugs, and implement features to help make Reaper the DAW that it is today. While there's definitely plenty more to love about Reaper, I've got to keep this video brief, so I hope this helps. We'll see you next time.